Hi, everyone. This is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Monday, everybody. Today, we are going to talk about Venus's upcoming sextile with Mars. We will also preview a few of the transits that are getting started this week, but will perfect next week. So we'll break down the Venus-Mars sextile, give you a sense of what to expect, a few deeper thoughts to go along with it. Now, before I dive into that, I want to remind everybody, since it is the beginning of April, that my programs for the spring are open for enrollment. I start promoting them in the month of April every year. So just as a reminder, go to my website right now. This is nightlightastrology.com. If you click on the courses page and go to the first year course, my first year program is called Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. It is a 1-year program in Hellenistic astrology. It is perfect for two kinds of students: those who are completely brand new to astrology but want to study it at a deeper level, learn how to read charts, maybe even just focus on your own chart, but also for students who are already students of astrology but have never studied Hellenistic astrology in particular. So this is a great course for that. You're going to find that the early bird rate is in effect now. This page on my website tells you everything you need to know about the course. But the early bird rate is in effect, and we begin the course on June 13th, and it meets on Sundays throughout the year, typically about 3 weeks on and 1 week off. There's 30 classes on the year, about 3 hours each, plus 12 guest speakers, optional homework assignments, reading assignments, bonus material, a discussion forum. You can email me throughout the year without questions as you're going through the material. They're held live webinars on Zoom, good Q&A, interactive forums. We have breakout study sessions. So there's all sorts of stuff to help you learn how to practice. You use the pay in full option. That's our early bird rate. You can get a good discount before the start of the course. There's a payment plan, and there's also tuition assistance available for those who need it. And you can check all this out on the website. So I welcome you all to come and study. I'll be doing some birth chart demos in the weeks ahead as we prepare for the course. I like to give people just little free lessons on how to read charts here or there throughout the year. And I kind of tend to ramp those up a little bit to also preview what it's like to study with me. So I'll be doing more of that in the weeks ahead, but I hope to see some of you in class soon. If you have any questions about the course, feel free to email info@nightlightastrology.com. We'll be happy to try to answer your questions. All right, so let's take a look at Venus's sextile with Mars. So here is Venus in the sign of Aries at about 18 degrees right now. And we are going to see the sextile to Mars in Gemini forming in the next 2 days. So if we go forward, between now and Wednesday, you're going to see Venus pass right through the sextile to Mars. It's a brief window, but it's powerful, and it will be in effect all the way, you could say, until about Friday, Saturday of this week. So what's good about this transit? What to watch for? What to watch out for from this transit? A few things. First of all, Venus is recovering while in the sign of her exile or detriment in Aries from combustion with the sun. So she's being reborn as the morning star right now, but hasn't got her own visibility back yet. She's going to soon enter the sign of Taurus by about mid-month. So Venus is in what we would call a recovery phase right now. Venus is gaining her strength back, but is still weak. But the good news is that Venus has a little help from her friends. She's in the sign of Mars, Aries, but has sextile with reception. When Venus is in Mars's sign and then aspects Mars, especially through a favorable aspect like a sextile, sextiles are of the nature of Venus, they're a harmonizing aspect. Venus is helped out. Right after that, Venus will go through a sextile to Jupiter. Now, this one doesn't have reception, but still, Jupiter's in the superior position. So Venus is getting some help this week, big time. What does that mean? You could just say that Venusian things are starting to recover and move along. They're gaining momentum. They're starting to develop from a position of weakness. That's really good. So anything Venusian, friends, agreements, romance, sex, love, harmony in the workplace, anything that Venus could possibly represent that maybe has been going through a challenging time should probably pick up some positive momentum this week. And then next week, you're going to see this kind of conflagration of supportive energy. Let's take a look at what that looks like really quick. So what's going to happen next week is we're going to see Mars get into the trine with Jupiter, as the sun is also getting involved with Jupiter, and Mercury will get into the mix as well. So basically what you have are these planets right here getting involved in sextiles to the sun and Mercury, and then Mars getting involved with trines to Jupiter. So it's just like a little pocket of very supportive and progressive energy. There are going to be some bewares with this that we'll go over later in the week or early next week, but pretty good overall. And right now, Venus is certainly starting to pick up some positive momentum. So what does that look like? Well, here are some of the things to think about with Venus and Aries in general. Venus in a Mars-ruled sign is going to be more hot, tempestuous, selfish, potentially sort of cantankerous or, bellicose, but belligerent. A planet that is usually about harmony, beauty, grace, desire is the heat's turned up. And then it could get a little bit more selfish or aggressive or ambitious in ways that are more destructive or confrontational. So that's a tension. It's not a good or a bad thing. It's just an archetypal tension. What does that bring? Attempts at harmony could be stifled through conflict or selfishness, a desire that's running too hot, a clash of wills and desires about the best possible outcome, erotic tension. That could be a good thing creatively even, but there's still a tension there, a push and a pull. You think about that dimension of sexual intimacy that can be about dominance and submission, and the roles switching back and forth between the dominant and the submissive. And not all sexual experiences need to work like that, but it wouldn't be surprising with Venus in Mars's sign to see that tension of dominance and submission really amplified right now. Anger and seduction, will and selfishness around what one wants, desires, or finds beautiful. Power gets me what I want, moving fast towards what I desire. These are all Venus and Aries kinds of things that are again, there could be positive, constructive examples of these things that we don't really mind or that could even be helpful. And then obviously there's going to be some tensions built into these that are not so fun to deal with. Now, Mars, because Venus is in Mars' sign and then sextiles Mars, that means cooperation and harmony. Sextile is an aspect of Venus. We're now going to, and because Venus is in Mars' sign, we're going to see a pretty nice period of cooperation between them this week. So there's kind of a harmony between the masculine and feminine, which could be an erotic tension or just a general form of helpfulness in getting things done. Remember that Mercury and Mars are also in mutual reception right now. Mercury is in Aries, Mars is in Gemini. So there's like multiple irons in the fire, the ability to multitask, the ability to get things done, possibly things like sharp words or more combustible forms of communication. And that could be, almost like a hot day in a long ride in the car where there's just tensions are boiling over. And how I'm just thinking about how it is as a parent. You just feel like you're being cooked inside when the kids are just like really chaotic and it's hot and you're just like trying to keep the peace, but there's this busyness and tension, and everyone has different desires that are all conflicting. So that could be a little bit of that kind of chaos in the air, but there should be a harmonization around those things. So what does that translate into practically speaking? Well, even if that tension is there, you'll find that it's soothed or eased, maybe more than it was last week, for example. Or you might just find that that tension is eased or soothed away or resolved more naturally, more quickly. Almost as though if there's been a tension or a conflict of wills and desires, that now multiple people or elements of a situation are finding harmonization, even if it's a bit like a tango where there's a push and a pull and still kind of that erotic competitive quality underneath the surface, that there's now some kind of harmony that's coming in and easing it. You could find that resolution of tension comes as quickly as the tension itself. In other words, tempers and conflicting wills and desires may bubble up really quickly, but also be eased, resolved, forgiven very quickly. It's kind of like sharp words and quick apologies. Like, blah, like that just happens. And then obviously you go, oh, I'm really sorry. Like, I don't know why I just totally attacked you or something like that. And I'm also just thinking about, again, as a parent, where there's just those moments. And I was just we were observing this over the weekend because we're in the process of moving right now. And there's boxes everywhere. There's stuff going on. And I feel like once in a while, just like a little a little blast of steam just like flies out of my ear, my wife's ear or something, because the kids are in the driveway, and one of my daughter is taking all of the sidewalk chalk from my other daughter and like, running. And then the other daughter tries to catch up with her, like, hey, don't take all the sidewalk chalk. And then she just stabs her with a sidewalk chalk. And then I'm holding a box and I drop it, and I just about scream. And you know what I mean? It's just that kind of energy could be around right now, but also the ability to laugh, or the ability to find some kind of quick resolution, or like I had a moment when we were moving when I go, I'm going to take a break right now because I'm about to lose my shit. You know what I mean? And it was just like, okay, I'm going to sit down for 10 minutes. And I did. And then I like chilled out. I just feel like there's a little buffer right now. So it's like that competing or hot energy that Venus and Aries brings can find a little bit like Mars remember Mars, Mercury, mutual reception, Mars and Gemini. You can find clever ways of moving around the challenges that are in front of you. It's sort of, again, I've said this before about Mars and Gemini, but because I was born with this one, Mars and Gemini is really good about getting out of fights. Like that, I broke up a bunch of fights in high school that kids were about to get into, and I was always really good at just like diffusing tension. That's because the Mercury Mars combination is very good at strategy, street smarts, solving problems on your feet, things like that. Improvisation. So the ability to improvise around conflicts of will and desire is there right now, and you can that can be a real blessing in a time where everything is just sort of boiling over. But there's also this kind of flirtatious and promiscuous energy, like mischievous, flirtatious, promiscuous energy, and that's a little different than just easing or soothing tensions. It has more to do with play and playfulness. And one of the things that I love about my daughters is they both have a lot of Mercury energy in their chart, and for as mean as they are to each other sometimes, they are also very playful, and they're both sort of equally mischievous. So they play off one another quite a bit. And I find that if I try to intervene more than I should, that I'm really not trusting their ability to figure things out. And what I was observing over the weekend when we were going through all of this, the temperature also spiked here for Easter, which was cool, but it was also like, yeah, it just kind of added, what it's like to carry boxes around, and it's really hot and whatever. So, but anyway, I was observing this, and I was like, no, if I let them solve things on their own, their relationship is much better than if I try to intervene and play. I mean, sometimes I have to, but if you're a parent, you probably know what I mean. Like, let them figure it out sometimes. And I was just observing how humorous and funny it was to watch them figure these tensions out and turn them from competition into play. There's a fine line between competition and play right now in the air. So flirtatious and promiscuous energy, which is more fun, and it might play into that kind of erotic tension competition quality. Venus gets support, by the way, right now for its desires through multiple people, places, actions. It's almost like you could consider that Venus has a small entourage who are all willing to help Venus get what she wants right now. So there's a lot of support. But one of the things that comes up is that Venus and Aries, notoriously on a sort of psychological level, can indicate the tendency to use other people for your own selfish desires. And so, while Venus has help from Mars and Jupiter in the upcoming days and is starting to recover, it's very important that if we're on the receiving end of that, we're receiving some kind of support, that we really take time to be grateful, like deeply show our gratitude very deeply for the people who are making things smoother for us, or who are making things, get along or cooperate. So take time to, it's very easy right now to just feel like when you get your own way to feel like, yes, it worked out, and to just kind of keep going forward. But it will help if we pause to recognize that we couldn't have done this on our own. That's probably the case with Venus in her exile, recovering from combustion with the sun. So just taking time to recognize who and what has been helping us, who and what has been useful to us. So multiple parties working together favorably or cooperatively, and the need for gratitude rather than taking anyone or anything for granted. So it's just paying attention to the potential for that selfishness on the level of desire to be there. Now, if two people mutually can support one another and they don't feel used, then there's also a sense in which, hey, look, what I want is useful to what you want. We don't want the same things, but I've got something you want, you've got something I want, so let's work together. That could also be something to watch for this week. All right, so that's what I wanted to say just about Venus in the sextile with Mars this week. I hope that's helpful for all of you. Practically speaking, I want to share a story a little deeper that I think can get to the heart of this issue I've been mentioning about gratitude and recognizing how important it is to say thank you and to just be in a spirit of gratitude for all of the things in our lives that help us achieve our desires. So in the past week, I've been watching this documentary. It's about Mount Everest and climbers that go up to the top of Mount Everest. And it's also about the Sherpas who are like, they're born obviously in Nepal or in the Himalayas, and they Himalayas, and because they're born at higher altitude, they have slightly bigger hearts and lungs. And really, the summits to Everest that are done regularly by mountaineers around the world couldn't be done without these Sherpas. And I've been watching this series, and it was really interesting because there was this one guy who wanted to get to the top. It was like a really important life goal of his. And he had something of a chip on his shoulder, like he had something to prove. And that was kind of the premise of his story. So he makes 2 attempts, and on the first 2 attempts, he doesn't get to the top. He collapses, he has problems breathing, and he has to go back down. And of course, in many of the companies that help people go up to the top, they employ Sherpas, and the Sherpas are expert climbers many of them have gone to the top many times, and they also go up and lay ropes down for other people so that it makes it easier for amateur climbers to go up. Anyway, the first 2 times the guy didn't make it, and then the third and final time he did make it. And he was reflecting on what was different the third time when he finally made it. And it was really beautiful what he said. He said, and I'm just paraphrasing here, but he said, the first 2 times I thought I was the one going up, and I was the one who failed. And the third time when I made it up, I realized that it was my Sherpa who had succeeded. When I got to the top, I realized that it was my Sherpa that had succeeded. And as I went up, what I realized was that my ability to get up to the top was based on my Sherpa and not myself. He said it was a mindset change between the first 2 times where I really wasn't recognizing that my Sherpa was there helping me, and I was trying to do it on my own, even though he had a Sherpa with him both times. So the third time, I realized that it was the expertise and all of the success of my Sherpa and the example that he set for me as a climber, the attitude, the spirit, the bravery, the courage, the perseverance, and that I realized that it was his calm, sweet, steadfast ability that was getting me to the top. And when I tapped into that, I got to the top. And when I got to the top, I realized this was not my achievement. This was my Sherpa's achievement. And I was touched so deeply by this. I can't even describe it. Like I was crying. It was just, I can't explain it because, and then I had this realization that this is analogous to spiritual life. How do we get to the top of the spiritual mountain, to use a, kind of a tired metaphor, but how do we get to the top of the spiritual mountain? If the spiritual mountain is to become more virtuous, if the spiritual mountain is to commune with God, to awaken the spirit soul within and to commune in love with our divine source, how do we get there in our everyday life? How does our everyday life become conducive to achieving things spiritually? Even though I don't always like the idea of a vertical climb and, achievement for spirituality, let's just use it because I think the analogy here is so nice. Well, first of all, we need saintly people. We need, and that doesn't mean perfect people. Saintly people are just people who, maybe like those born near the Himalayas, they have slightly bigger lung capacity, slightly bigger heart capacity, spiritually speaking. They're in a space where they have a little bit more ability than we do naturally, or they've developed that somehow. So we need guides. We need guides that have slightly more heart capacity than we do yet. And then we follow their wisdom, their example, their teachings, and not, again, putting them on any kind of pedestal, and not making them inhuman, but just recognizing, hey, there's something that the example of this person stands out to me in some way, and I'm going to follow that I'm going to use that as my guide up the mountain. And when we do that, and then we hit milestones or achievements in our spiritual life, we get somewhere that we've been trying to go spiritually. We become a better version of ourselves. We become a better parent or lover, or we become a better son or daughter. We become the best version of ourselves, or we start to develop better habits, kick bad ones. We feel ourselves developing. It's so important that in these moments that we recognize that I got here because of the saintly examples. I got here because of my spiritual Sherpas, so to speak, people who, humbly have shown us the way. And in that spirit of gratitude, then there's a deep, deep satisfaction that comes in knowing that this was not my achievement. This was the achievement of those who have come before me, whether it's my ancestors or all the different spiritual teachers I've had in my life. And they've blazed a trail. They've walked this path before. And how did they walk it? They walked it because they also had examples. So this trail is a never-ending trail of saints, walking a path of love. And when we start to walk that path and we start to accomplish things on it, it's so important that at that very moment we recognize the only reason I'm here is because of the people in this line behind me, gently pushing me on, gently encouraging my spirit, gently encouraging my heart to grow bigger, my mind to open, for my best practices to come out, for me to kick some of the bad things that I struggle with. And what I've experienced, I found it was so analogous. What this man was saying is that the times in my spiritual life where I've really faltered, felt like a failure, and really stumbled, have been those times where I've tried to be something, become something, accomplish something, and instead, I've been I get focused. I've gotten focused on myself and what I can achieve, even spiritually. And I was just so moved when he said it wasn't my accomplishment, it was my Sherpa's accomplishment. And of course, what did the Sherpa say when he said this to him on the camera? He said, I had good teachers, right? So the Sherpa, just like the man, has come. The reason that he can push up the mountain down and back easily, back and forth, isn't just because he was born with slightly bigger lungs and a slightly bigger heart, but also because he was taught by his own teachers who have been in this lineage of mountain climbing Sherpas for a long time. The strength of character that he was taught by his teachers as a young man learning to climb Everest over and over again. He just humbly bowed and said, My teachers taught me the same thing. So in this way, that's really the real meaning of progress, is to recognize that any of our victories in this world, the first thing that we do when we accomplish anything, when we taste some level of success or victory, or we get what we want, is to recognize that this wasn't my achievement. This was made possible because of so many other people. And when we immediately distribute the gifts of our success or our accomplishment, our bonds and ties to goodness grow. And then our hearts and our spiritual lungs, so to speak, get a little bit bigger. And that's how we keep this line of teaching going. The teachings are all over the world in so many different traditions, but that's how we keep it going. When we accomplish anything, we look to thank and distribute the wealth of our success to others. And in that, we encourage and support other people to take to the same path. And that's the path of sharing. It's a humble path, but it's strewn with blessings and accomplishments. It's just that when we reach those accomplishments and blessings, our immediate instinct is to thank others and to give to others for them. So I wanted to share that because there's a lot of very cooperative and sort of like success energy coming in the next 2 weeks. And I think that it could be especially tempting right now to feel like we're doing it on our own. But every time we do it on our own, we also have to eventually be the one that fails on our own. And that's a lonely place to be. Success and failure through my own personal ego and will is just a lonely place to be. And the blessings are very temporary. The way that we make blessings last is to spread them and share them and to give thanks for the others that helped us get where we want to go. So if you reach a mountain in the next week, look around and say, well, this isn't my victory. These are the accomplishments of other people, and offer your humble respects to whatever is helping you get where you need to go, and watch the blessings and the encouragement increase and distribute and build upon themselves and really deeply last, because they go in and inspire other people. So at any rate, that's what I have to say for today. I hope this was interesting. A few random insights from my documentary dive into Mount Everest climbing. Really fascinating, by the way, that people are willing to, just blows my mind that people will risk their lives in these such intense, conditions. I don't know if you guys have ever seen these. There's a whole bunch of them. I'm just kind of just discovering this. I had a friend who got really into climbing, and so he was telling me about them, and I just decided to watch this documentary. And yeah, I think it's on Netflix or something like that. So anyway, hope you guys have a great week this week. We'll be back for more every day throughout the week. All right, take it easy, everyone. Bye.